From almost losing his child to parental alienation to homelessness and addiction, Keith is now at a point where, as he says, changing the world one person at a time from the inside out, starting with myself. He has years of lived experience, and everything he does to guide others is a reflection of the strength and love he has found within himself.
Welcome to Awakening Soul Divinity, your sacred space for deep healing and transformation. Listen to inspiring conversations with healing experts, spiritual guides, and teachers as we explore ancient wisdom, modern healing, and powerful stories of change. I'll also share practical insights from my personal journey, from spiritual crisis to inner purpose. Whether you're seeking to overcome anxiety, embrace your true nature, or awaken your higher self, this podcast offers guidance to help you transform your life and elevate collective consciousness.
Oh, welcome, Keith. Hi, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Carolyn?
I'm fantastic. I'm so excited about this. There's a couple of things happening. As you can see, you may not remember, but my background's changed a bit because
Okay.
my wonderful son is letting me use his office for the
Oh,
for
that's
the next
awesome.
some time.
Awesome.
I'm not at home, I'm traveling.
Yep.
And yeah, so I wanted to share that. And also, I we've known each other since 2016, and I think that
Yes.
is like wow, because we both I
Almost a
know.
decade.
Oh, wow, you said that. Well, holy crap. Yeah, because I mean, there's so many changes that both of us have been going through and
Yes.
coming to this point where we are in our lives. And God bless us both, because this is a very exciting time to be living in for sure. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So let's get started. Let's jump right in. Could you briefly share a trauma or adversity or a catalyst or challenging experience that led you to the path that you're on today?
My path was anchored in, I believe, as a child. I believe I was born to do what I'm doing, and that's to help people live a better life. But in doing so, things happen in life that challenge us. And I truly believe that greatness doesn't come to the comfortable. And our challenges are meant to pull our greatness out. It's meant to see if we can navigate our life from the inside out to heal the things that are going on within us so that we can manage the things that are going on outside of us. So for me, I've lived a charmed life, man. I've anything I put my mind to, I've been able to do. It's the things that I couldn't control in the beginning, like uh, when you're co-parenting, you can't necessarily control what the other co-parent does, and that can interfere with your ability to parent. And so, in the situation that I was in, I found myself not being able to be the type of father that my father was to me, because my son's mother had other ideas about how she wanted to raise her child. And not to get into the details, but that was the hardest heartbreak that I've ever had in my life. And it was very, very difficult for me to deal with. It's something that for the first 15 years of my life, I carried a lot of hurt, a lot of hate, a lot of pain, and it interfered with my health. It interfered with my ambitions. It interfered with my dating life, because I took it so personal. And it wasn't until I realized what I was doing to myself, and 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 until I studied the benefit of forgiveness, that I was able to start to transform the energy that was associated with literally hating my son's mother. Um, and forgiveness is a tricky thing, because forgiveness isn't about saying what you did is okay. Forgiveness is saying that what you did will no longer control who I am, how I think, how I feel, how I perceive my future, and what's possible for me. That's what forgiveness is truly about. But in order to have the freedom that forgiveness brings, you really have to let the judgments go. And that's hard to do when you're in your victim self. So I literally had to explore, how do I get out of my victim self? And really, it's about the stories that we tell ourselves. And when I looked at the story I was telling about my baby mama drama, I was trying to figure out, how do I truly forgive someone if I can't let it go? And
Hmm.
then what do I have to do mentally to be able to let it go? And when I looked at the nature of the story that I was telling myself, I realized that the story I was telling was the story of the victim. And it was what she did to me and how she prevented me from being the parent and this, that, and the other. And so I was the victim. But then Spirit was speaking with me and said, "What's the most important element of this equation between you and the mother of your child?" And it's my son. And when I looked at who she was as a mother and who my son is as a wonderful individual, my son's 22 years old now. And my son is awesome. That dude is outstanding. He knows love. He got the best educations. He's an Eagle Scout. He graduated from college, has his degree in music production. He is he's respectful. He cares about the community. He's a critical thinker. He's an independent thinker. And when I look at who he is, I have to admit that his mother was a great mother. So when I tell the story of my son's mom was a great mother, and I never had to worry about him being raised to be an amazing, productive individual and being raised in a nest where he could truly evolve to be his true self, she did a wonderful job with that. So when I tell that story, it feels good, right? Because it's really about my son. And the other side of the equation is, me and my son had a spiritual connection from day one. So the truth is, the relationship that we have is amazing in spite of the interference that I perceived from his mom. You know, I wasn't able to be at all of his graduations. I wasn't able to be at all of his school functions. I wasn't able to be the dad that was at all of his games or his bands. I never saw him play in the band. He's a 4-year band letterman. I didn't get to be at his final exam for Eagle Scout, right? And those things crushed me when that in that moment. But when I look at how he turned out, I'm very, very proud of him, and I'm very proud of the mother that my son's mom was and is to this day. Um, and it's so interesting because he graduated last year, and my angst with his mom, I hadn't talked to her since 2015. So that's before I met you, right? Because I blocked her because it
Yeah.
was just toxic. And we just engaged whenever necessary, very, very minimal. So literally at his graduation, that was the first time I had seen her or literally talked to her in depth, because she would come down to visit, and I would pick him up and say hi, bye, or whatever. But at that time, I wasn't really appreciating who she was. But this time at graduation, I didn't know how I was going to feel. This was my experiment to see if I had really forgiven, right? Because you can say I forgive you, and then when you see somebody, you're like, I
Uh,
want to kill you, right?
totally
But it
get it.
wasn't
Yep.
right. It wasn't like that. And when I saw her at my son's graduation, I was happy to see her, because of the fact that it was a relief not to carry hate, not to carry hurt in
Mm,
my heart, and it
mm.
felt good. And the real thing that felt good was to see my son breathe that sigh of relief when his mother and father came together for his graduation, and we actually got along, and his grandmother was there. And it was a very cordial, intimate setting where I saw him breathe a sigh of relief on his special day, and that to me made it worth everything. So that was the biggest issue that I've had to deal with life. That I had the hardest time of dealing with acceptance, the hardest time of dealing with forgiveness, the hardest time of changing the narrative that I was telling myself.
Mhm.
Those things are difficult because when we hold on to so much, that baggage weighs us down.
Yeah.
And so, forgiveness gives us freedom.
I'm going to write that one down because I've heard it before and I've said it before, but this is a good spot for that. Forgiveness gives us freedom. Yeah. And it's not necessarily freedom from someone else, it's freedom to be who we are. That's beautiful. I love that. And what's really cool is that you didn't jump into the blame game. Like you looked at yourself to work
Oh, I was in
through.
the playing game for 15 years. I had to get out of the blame game to liberate myself.
Got it. There it is. Okay.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. I get that
Yes.
totally because I experienced something similar and that definitely the forgiveness for me took me out of the blame game.
Yes.
That's where and it also takes you out of victim.
Yes, because in order to forgive, you got to change your perspective.
Oh yeah,
As
absolutely. And
long
that
as
is
you're carrying the hurt, as
yeah.
long as you're walking in your victim self, I tell everybody, I'm a spiritual life coach and I work in recovery, and but I also work with other clients as well. And I tell everyone that when you look in the mirror, there's two people looking back, the hero and the victim. And in every now moment, we have to choose which one is going to lead our life.
Mm-hmm.
In order to make that choice, we have to be self-aware because the victim voice is so habitual because we've been trained to be that way in some areas of our life.
And it's loud.
It is loud because it's a narrative that keeps running in your head. And when that narrative runs in your head, it messes with your emotions. Your
Mm-hmm.
emotions dictate what you feel, and then you're feeling horrible. And so it's validating. Your victim mind is being validated by your horrible feelings. And it's a cycle that you have to pull yourself out of. Otherwise, you're in a hamster wheel. And a hamster wheel leads not only to mental health issues, but physical health issues and spiritual disconnection.
Right. So let me ask you this. Was that the thing that led to the homelessness and the addiction?
Well, I won't, no,
That wasn't it. It was
my
something. Okay.
mentality was infected by that, but
Okay.
my poor business practices and trying to start my own business, and realizing, I was one that was, I realized quitters never win and winners never quit. But so I stayed on the ship until it sank because my goal was to build my own business and I wasn't going to quit until I got it done. And I'm here now having established a body of work that validates my commitment to it. But my homelessness was really due to being inappropriately prepared to understand the full dynamics of being an independent business owner. And I stayed on the
Yeah.
sinking ship until it sunk. Um, and I've been successful at pretty much everything that I've done.
Mhm.
To experience myself going into homelessness, knowing who I am, knowing what my capabilities were, I became so mad at myself. That was the hardest part for me was my own self-judgment. I was literally like, how the fuck did you get yourself in this situation? Like, you're better than this. Like, what the hell? And when you're in those situations, there's people that support you, but they can't save you, right? And I give thanks to my sister. My sister is my soulmate. Like my blood sisters, she was the one, she was there with me all the way through. And there was this one conversation she says, Keith, you're too busy judging yourself and you have rage within you. She said, you need to let that rage go. As long as you have that rage, you're going to keep feeling that stuck. You're going to keep feeling stuck. And literally, I'm in the parking lot where I was staying in my minivan. And she's like, you need to let it out. And she said, let it out with me on the phone. And I just started screaming and hollering and let it out. And it was cathartic. And that's when my healing started. When I released the rage, when I started to dial back the self-judgment, it was still there because it's embarrassing to be homeless, especially when you're used to success and you're looking in everybody's face and you don't want them to know that you're homeless. I didn't tell nobody that I was homeless. Only, even certain members of my family didn't even know. My father knew, my sister knew, but I had pride, and that pride was killing me. And I part of it didn't allow me to ask for help from my near friends. I only asked for help from my family. But some of my near friends actually showed up and helped me too. So that's not all the way true. But you don't want to lean on those friendships, and I probably leaned on a few so too much. So and you start to feel a burden. All of that gets mixed into that, but the healing part was even in my homelessness, I had grace. Even in my homelessness, I was well supported and well taken care of. God never left my side. And I have so many examples of how even in homelessness, there was grace given to me. And it was like I was afforded time to figure it out without having to suffer through it.
That's right.
The
Yeah.
suffering was sleeping in the middle in a minivan in Florida when it's 81 degrees at night. That shit was
It's
suffering. But
not, yeah. That's pretty
But
bad.
part of it, there's a sense of pride in knowing that I know how to survive when the going gets tough. I know how to survive, right? I am a survivor, but I never want to go through that again. But if I have to, I know I can, you know. And through that, I learned so many things about myself and so many things about life in general. So I wouldn't give it up for anything, but no need to repeat it.
No, but yeah, the good news is you probably won't. But yeah,
Not
and
probably, I won't.
probably you won't. But
Not probably, I won't.
you
Yeah.
okay, you won't. How's
Yes.
that? We got it. Okay. Well,
Right.
and it's interesting because I remember that I had met you one time. You were still so just for an awareness of who this man is for me. I actually hired him as a coach while he was going through this stuff, right? Or
Yeah.
almost, right? It was part of it was in the middle of it because I
Yes.
remember there was one point that I met you at your minivan.
Yes.
I remember that. And
That's
I don't
right.
remember a lot. And I was like, and you told me what was going on, but you never asked me either
Yeah.
for any help. And I totally get that too, because that's what got me into my hole last or 2 years ago, because I'm the person that's always there for everybody. I'm the one who wants to save everybody else and rescue and help. And this is who I was. And then it got to the point, which is part of why I started working with you, because I began to recognize the victim piece of all that. And I was doing a few things around that time frame, but one of the things I remember that you said was the quitters never win and winners never quit. I haven't heard you say that in a long time. So this was
Right.
powerful that you mentioned that,
Yes.
because that's true, and it's hard to believe that about yourself though, when you're right in the middle of it.
That's
That
right.
part, yeah, it's like it's this mental, in that space, it's this mental game that you almost need to play with yourself to remind yourself that who you are is bigger than this that you're portraying yourself as in the moment while you're working through the healing and the all that kind of stuff.
I call that being sober minded and having conviction, right?
Yes, yeah.
Sober minded meaning having clear thought. And when we're in our mental health disorders, and mental health disorder, in my opinion, is when we have experiences in our life, past, present, or even future, that bring us turmoil mentally, and we don't know how to process it in a productive way.
Mhm.
So we allow ourselves to spiral negatively from these concepts because, I always share with people too is the past doesn't exist now, and the future doesn't exist now. The only thing that exists now is now. And so our control in life is determined by who we are in this now moment. And if my mind is stuck in the negative past, then I'm going to allow my negative past to be infused in the endless potential of now. And therefore my now becomes negative. And the key is, how do I master my mind so I can truly be anchored in the now and I can truly take my life in the direction I wanted to go through, regardless of what I've been through and regardless of how difficult the obstacles that my future might present are. How can I be positive and grounded and anchored in this moment with determination and conviction, right? That was the main thing. And I've always had determination and conviction. So
Oh, I
a
know.
conviction is a relentless determination to succeed. It's relentless.
Well, let's jump off of that spot right there, because your personal healing journey has been, you picked a good one for this lifetime. Let's just say that, right? And all these things that you're talking about right now led you to the work that you do to support others. That's who you are. That's why I said what I did in the intro, because you've created this person, being, I'm not even sure what to call it at the moment, but it's led to the work that you do. So can you share a little bit about how that work is, or what you do to support others? You mentioned
So,
it a little.
just a little bit of correction. That event didn't, that's just one episode in my life. Me being the coach that I am has way more rich influences than just that experience with trials and tribulations. My trials and tribulations don't define me at all, but they do test my ability to overcome obstacles. They test my ability to be self-aware, my ability to self-correct with my own mental health things.
Right.
They test that, and they made that possible. But who I am as a life coach has been enriched by every chapter of my life. And
That's
most of
what,
my life
right.
has been successful. So I don't define myself by my trials and tribulations. I define myself by my vision and my attitude in the now, right? And some of it did lead to that, but that's so far gone and distant in my mind, because one of the things is I never identify as a victim, and I never identify by my affliction. I identify by the best part of me. When people say, "Who are you?" I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, trying to figure out how to strengthen my connection with God and how to be of service to the best of my ability to others. What I do now is I'm a spiritual life coach. My ultimate goal is to help others live their best life through enhancing their own personal connection with spirit from within, whether you call it God or whatever, God of your choosing, but to help us understand that our world will only change when we change from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
And many of us, we've been entrained to believe that we need to be saved. And that in training comes as a result of our religions, that in training comes as a result of our education, it comes as a result of our family upbringing. All of these indoctrinations have led us to be very victim minded, to constantly look for instant gratification, to avoid dealing with the most difficult obstacles by confronting them.
Yeah.
And everybody gets a trophy, but in real life, everybody doesn't get a trophy, right? You got to work hard to get what you want. And work hard isn't necessarily slaving with your physical self. The hard work is learning how to master your mental self and learning how to unleash your spiritual self. That's the hard work. How do I turn off the noise from the outside so I can discover the glory on the inside? That's the hard
Right.
work.
Right. And it's like this all encompassing. That's how I see, because mine's like that too. It's like it's not just the bad stuff, it's all of it. It's like
Yeah.
recognizing uncovering my truth, recognizing who I am, and then taking all of that, putting it in a pot, stirring it up, and then coming up with this person I am now. And that's how I saw you in how you did this.
And see, I also perceive it in the sense that the perfect you is within you already. We're not
True.
pouring into ourselves. We are unleashing ourselves by removing all the things that block us from being our best self. So I don't believe, like, if you look at the true definition of education, the Latin root of the word education is edu. Edu means to bring from within.
Mm-hmm.
So true education is the ability to bring from within someone's innate greatness, someone's innate wisdom, and we might call that intuition or spiritual guidance or whatever. But that's the ultimate goal, is to relieve yourself of all of these external leaders and find the internal leader that will never ever let you down. The God in you will never ever let you down.
Mm-hmm.
See, leaders outside of you, some way, somehow, they're going to be gone. Right? You can't take them in the grave with you. But the thing that you take in the grave with you, that thing that never dies, is your own spirit. That's your personal connection to God. And
Yes.
that's what my focus is on.
So, how do you transform and transcend bad habits and self limiting beliefs then?
So there's a couple of processes. And one is you got to look at, I always look at one of the most powerful statements is the I am statements, right? Your I am statements show me how you think about yourself. Anything you put after I am starts to define you, right? Just metaphysically, it starts to define you, because the spoken word shapes things, especially the words that you say about yourself. That's why I will not define myself by the negative things that happened in my life. I define myself by the greatest potential that I stand for. And when I speak to that, I'm opening up the door for that energy to consume me. When I allow that energy to consume me, that vibration attracts those things to me in a more natural way. And you start to have synergistic happenings in your life when you tap into that divine connection within. It becomes magnetic. See, and the other way that I look at it is each and every one of us has the light of God in the center of our being. And all of our beliefs and all of our experiences, in some way, they act like shades. And we put these different shades over top of our life, right? These shades that define us as something other than being the child of God or being a unique beautiful expression of source energy, and God is living through us in a unique, God is experiencing life from the inside out through us, through this unique instrument that once we realize why we are here, we can unleash the connection with God. But as long as we have these belief systems that we've inherited getting in the way, God gave us free will to live this experiment any way that we want. But a lot of our experiment is being guided by belief systems that we inherited that are toxic, by educational systems that are toxic, by entertainment systems that are toxic. And all of those beliefs get in the way of our understanding of who we are. It dampens our light. So ultimately, when you start to remove all the things that dampen your light, right? And that's everything that you allow to be planted in your heart and soul. Your heart and soul are um, fertile gardens. The heart is a fertile garden. The mind is a fertile garden. And anything you allow to be planted in it will grow. And it doesn't matter whether it's beneficial or destructive. And we as the divine being, we have the responsibility for nurturing our garden and making sure that only positive things are being planted in there, and making sure that we can de-weed, take all the things out of the garden that are destructive and don't allow us to perceive our own greatness and don't allow
Right.
us to step and stand in love, right? Anything that is in the way of love, we need to get rid of.
That's right.
Anything.
That's
If
right.
it's not love, we need to get rid of it. And that's
Yeah.
a commitment, right? Because we've become addicted to pain. We've become addicted to hurt. I look at what we call entertainment now, right? Look at the video games. The best-selling video games are first-person shooters. When did murder become entertainment?
Yeah.
Right? When you look at the movies that sell out, it's all about destruction of the world or aliens coming to kill you, or you need some superhero to come save humanity. And they constantly have you looking outside of yourself for a savior. And if you follow their lead, you will never find your greatness because your
True.
greatness is within. Your
Right.
savior is within. Your savior is in the mirror. Michael Jackson sung about that.
So, what's the spiritual relevance of what's happening in our geopolitical world right now?
Well, it's so
Because you
interesting.
started, you led into this, so we're
Yeah. So when you look at where we're at, I believe we're living in a time of revelation. I really do. When you are seeing our financial um, our financial institutions, everybody is starting to realize in their own ways that it's full of shit. Our political institutions, we're starting to realize they don't really represent us. They represent the oligarchies that control their pockets, right? Our educational institutions are not truly educating our kids to be independent thinkers. They're educating them to be followers and puppets, and who can't think for themselves, who are confused about who they are. All of that stuff is being introduced into them on purpose, so it's harder for them to locate their own internal light, right? They're so busy trying to emulate the things that are being projected into their minds. And we as parents haven't done a good job either, from the standpoint of, first of all, realizing for ourselves who we are as the divine light within, and connecting with our own selves. We haven't broken the cycle, and we give our children the same mental health issues and the same belief systems that we still struggle with. The ultimate goal is to break those cycles so that we can truly understand our power. And I believe that this is the time when it's supposed to happen. Everything that's hidden in the darkness is coming into the light. That's both internally in individuals as well as externally in the society at large. Everything is being brought to the light. So a lot of us that have been doing this work, issues are coming back up like pimples that come to a head, because all the remaining toxic thoughts and beliefs and all that stuff are being pulled out of us now so that we can, it's a purifying process, right? And those of us that are pain averse or don't want to deal with the struggles that we thought that we dealt with, we choose to run from dealing with something that might be emotionally triggering, right? We run from it, and well, we take a pill and numb it so that we never have to address it mentally or emotionally or spiritually. And we're going to come to a point, and we're coming to that point where everybody must face their own demons from the inside out so that they can be purged, so that we can truly learn who we are as these divine lights. The light of God in you is waiting to shine brightly, but we got to take all the lampshades off, right? Our belief systems are the lampshades that dim our lights. So I see that as the sign of the times now, is everybody is being challenged to deal with their own idiosyncrasies, right? In the most constructive and productive ways. But most of us haven't been taught how to deal with our mental health issues. That's why so many people fall prey to drugs, right? They believe that the drug is the solution to their mental, emotional suffering, and it's not. It never has been. That the solution to our mental and emotional suffering is introspectively looking at what really is causing this trigger. Where did this come from, and how do I heal that? Right? We have therapists that can help with that. We have spiritual leaders that can help with that. But it requires introspectively looking at what are the belief systems, what are the hurts and the pains, the trauma, drama, and the pain that we must let go of in order for me to be truly free.
Can I
And
add something to that?
everybody is being
Okay.
brought to that table now.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's huge. What's interesting is it's the head to the heart thing. It
Mhm.
feels that's what it sounds like to me, because my experience with that was every time I got triggered, I would immediately jump at the person, protecting myself and defending myself, and doing all of that. But what happened little by little by little was whenever I got triggered, at some point I would go, I was like, where does that sit in me? How does that sit in me? Why is that sitting in me? And it gave me the opportunity to critically think and feel, because the feeling is actually the most important piece of this, that we're trained out of feeling, especially in this country. And through all of that, I started to be able to come out and recognize whenever I was triggered instead of being triggered.
Mhm.
So when someone's going through all of this stuff, how does one discover and live in their passion if they're kind of looped in their, yeah.
The Egyptians, they had a proverb, and it says the chatter of the mind drowns the wisdom of the heart. So the first stage to that type of healing is self-awareness. I am responsible for realizing in every now moment where my mood is. Because if I'm walking around negatively triggered, if I woke up in the morning and say, oh fuck, I gotta go to work, right? If I walk up and wake up and walk in that energy, if I don't change it, I will carry that energy every day. And in my coaching practice, I've learned, and this is one of the communications that I've shared, and people have heard this all over. They say, thought is the language of the mind, and feeling is the language of the body. Thought is electric, feeling is magnetic. Whatever energy you choose to walk around in, you are magnetically attracting like energies to you, or like experiences, because what you are feeling is telling the universe you need to deal with that and master it. And what people don't understand, when you pray to God for help, if you're praying to God for peace, guess what God's going to send you?
A lot of shit.
Chaos,
What
right?
pieces?
Because
Yeah, yeah.
the God in you didn't come here so that we become puppets that are looking to be saved. We are here to discover our greatness by navigating our obstacles, navigating these things that come up in our life successfully. That is
Thank
where we
you.
establish our greatness. That is where you see God working in your life the more personally, is when you actually choose to face the obstacles with courage and strength, right? So the first part is self-awareness. The second part is you got to be willing to do something about it. You got to be willing to step out of your victim and say, what would the hero in me do? Right? What can I do to resolve this situation? If I don't have tools, if I'm totally at a loss as what I can do, then I got to be willing to ask for help, right? And here's the other thing with AI, there's no reason why people don't Google search these. If somebody is diagnosing you, before you accept the diagnosis, Google search it, right? And if you have an issue or something with, like, let's say, for instance, people have anger management issues. Google anger management and how to overcome it. And there's a ton of information out there and practices that you can do to help you overcome your own anger management or your own sorrow or your own experience of grief. There's so much information out there. We have to be willing to do the work ourselves, to do the research ourselves, and stop waiting around to be saved. And it's hard to step up and be in the energy of um, self-healing when you're constantly walking around like Eeyore. Oh my God, look, oh, here we go again. Life fucking sucks. Oh shit. Oh my goodness. And if you're walking around like that, I mean, we all know people like that, and most of us have been that way before. That person, it doesn't matter. You know what? A victim will find a problem with the solution. They will find a problem with the solution. So first we have, after the awareness, we have to be willing to do something about it. And the do something about it is we got to do some research or we got to reach out for help, right? And once you have that research or once you have that help, we have to become good learners. Some of us have forgotten, many of us have forgotten how to be good learners. It's not enough just to listen to good advice. Listening to good advice doesn't solve the problem. It's what you do with that good advice that solves the problem, right? Or at least starts the journey to solving the problem. So I have to create a system in which I gather information and then I look at, okay, I start to brainstorm and say, what steps am I willing to take to address my current situation? Let me prioritize what are my next steps, right? So that's me being strategic. And then from that strategy, I create a routine that I start to practice every day. And that routine is what's going to help me resolve the issues that I face. I have to actually engage in solution-oriented activities that allow me to either experience success or experience failure, right? Because anytime that you're trying something new, failure is a part of the equation. And a lot of people stop when they experience their first couple of failures, kind of like none of us would have learned how to ride a bike with some of the mentalities that we have now because it's not easy, right? You actually have to fall down sometimes before you really understand what balance feels like, right?
But we were taught that mistakes were bad, though.
Who taught you that?
A lot. I was taught it. You can't make it. I became a perfectionist. Somebody
Yeah.
from somewhere, teacher, parent, whatever.
But that's what leads to our mental health issues, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
When you think that, oh my God, I made a mistake, something's wrong with me.
Right.
No, all successful people must battle through failures. Failures guide you to the right way of doing something or a more successful way of doing something, right? Each failure is telling you what not to do and in some way guiding you to what can I do next, right? It's
Yeah.
opening up the experimentation process. Life is an experiment. There's no right or wrong way to do everything. There's, you know what, in this experiment, there's only consequences to your actions. God is not judging you by your mistakes at
No,
all.
you're judging you. We judge ourselves more harshly
Right.
than God. God is not that. God does not
No, the
judge.
God, man, let me talk about God. The God that I believe in, right? And this is the God of my belief, is has no gender designation, is omnipotent, right? All powerful, omnipresent everywhere at once, eternal, not limited by time, infinite, not limited by space, unconditionally loving, does not know conditional love, beautiful, does not know ugly. That's the God that I'm talking about, right? It is totally benevolent in its present and in its practice. And that God is the center of our being. Without that, like God is the lithium battery that allows us to experience life. When we go to bed, we recharge, right? But when we wake up, how are you going to use the light and the power of that battery that God has given you in this life, that part of God that is you? And we render it useless because of how we've been trained to think about ourselves. Often, the most important thing, like I said earlier, is our I am statements. Your belief about yourself limits you. It limits you. Anything that you use, anything you put behind I am, defines you. So if I say I am tired, guess what your whole mind, body, spirit is going to do? It's going to make that come true.
Yeah.
And if I am sick, so you're validating that. When people ask me how I am, I say I am amazing because I am amazing. I say you're amazing too. And so I might be amazing with bubble guts, right? I'll say I'm amazing, but right now I'm dealing with a case of bubble guts. I'm never going to primarily identify with my affliction.
Right.
because the God in me is more powerful than any affliction that I could ever incur. And through faith and connection with that, I can heal anything within me. And
That's
that's been
right.
proven.
Hmm.
The light of
That's
God
right.
in us can only be defeated by one person, and that's you.
Yep. A
That's
source
you.
energy. That is source energy.
100%. It's
Yeah.
invincible. It's only through free will that we can ignore source, that we can deny the power of the light, that we can live a life of suffering.
And suffering is technically a choice from what I hear.
Yes,
Okay.
pain is a master teacher. Suffering is
Yes.
a choice you choose when you refuse to address your pain constructively.
And then you stay in the pain and you just get addicted, like you said. I mean, we can get addicted to anything. We can get addicted to trauma, we can get addicted to substances, drama, whatever. And pain is one of
Absolutely.
them. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So, how do you see individual healing work? And it kind of mixes in with the other question I asked you about the spiritual piece of it. But how do you see the individual healing work contributing to the larger societal transformation at this time?
Well, there is no separation, right? I am
Right.
because we, and every time one light shines brighter, the whole world is better. So every time we heal something in us, the whole world gets better.
Mhm.
Every time we curse somebody, the whole world feels that curse. We're not separate. And that's the thing is we don't really know who we are. We've been lied to. We think that we're these individual entities that can only impact our own lives. No, your presence impacts the entire universe. And the light of God within you is so powerful. The first word that you spoke is still echoing out to the outer edges of the universe. That's how powerful our light is. And once we understand the power of our light, we can become incredible manifestors.
Can I share something on this one? That's yes. When I was driving up here to visit my son, I'm driving through North Carolina. Well, no, I'm sorry, South Carolina. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I'm hungry. I want something vegan, whatever. And then I get a message in my head like, there's no vegan food in South Carolina. Are you kidding me? And I was pretty close. I was about 2 hours away from the border of North Carolina. And then I was like, but maybe. And then the next second, I looked over to the side of the road and there's a sign there, Evita's Vegan Kitchen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and it was the next exit. And I'm like, oh my God. So I pulled over there. Let me tell you something. That was the most powerful experience. I met a woman while we were waiting because there's a huge line and there's one woman doing all of the work. She's the cashier, she's the cook, she's the prep, she's the finish. She was doing everything. I don't know how she was doing with a big smile on her face, but she was doing it. And I got to experience in every facet of that moment with all those people standing there smiling and waiting for, and it wasn't Avita, there was some other lady who works there. It was like, it was the power source. It was the energy of source. It was like I was feeling love everywhere. And
Mhm.
I think I needed to see that because why would that have happened in that quick manifestation? And what I remember was I used to fight against manifesting because I was like, well, yeah, they talk about that and that never happens. I've said that to you. It's like, how do you always get these things to work for you? And I can't get them to work for me. I don't know if you remember that, but I really had a hard time with that. And then once I started doing my own healing work and clearing my nervous system from the emotions that were trapped in there and all the experience, everything that was in there, one day I wake up and all of a sudden I'm like, things are starting to come to me. So it's not what you're doing specifically that I discovered. It's what you're letting go of to create that opening for providence or source energy or creator, whatever you want to call it, manifestation. It opens that space for that to come in. And when that happened on 95 North, I'm like, yay, yes, this was great. And I got to meet some amazing people. And it was just, that's manifestation. That's what, when they talk about how quickly we can manifest from a thought, which is why I started that story, that sharing to begin with. It's like, it's a split second. It can happen in a split second. We
Yes.
don't normally see that. Sometimes
Well,
we do.
yes, we do. Because everything in your life you're manifesting.
Well, okay. I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
Every single thing in your life you're manifesting. So we
Mm-hmm.
see it in a split second. The real struggle is kind of like, to your point, when you were driving, you're like, oh, I know I'm not going to find vegan in South Carolina. I wish they had vegan in South Carolina, versus saying, I am going to find a great vegan place to eat sooner or later. And I know it.
Well, yeah. And I did flip it. I didn't say that, but I did flip it a little bit. And that's as soon
Right?
as I flipped it, though, that's where it showed up. That's where it showed up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we are the creators of our reality by the tone and the language that we
Yeah.
use. So, for instance, one of the examples that I always use, a friend of mine when I was in LA, and she was very much mixed up in the Hollywood scene or whatever. So when I would go home, we'd always go to these wonderful cafes where it's always packed, and you might see a star in there and this, that, and the other. But and so it was so packed. And I was like, wow, it's going to be a hard time finding parking. She's like, no, I always find great parking. And every place we went, we parked right in front. She
Yeah.
said, yeah, manifest that. I was like,
Yeah.
what? So when I came back to Florida, I started using that mantra. I always find great parking. I always find great parking. But deep down inside, I was like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
she was just lucky, right? I didn't really believe in it. And
Yeah.
then therefore, it didn't really start to manifest because it's not the words, it's the feeling that you
Mm.
put around those words.
Yep.
If you put disbelief behind affirmative words, the disbelief is going to win, right? So once I purge my disbelief, once I move the disbelief out of the way and say, hey, this possibly could work, now I always find great parking. And even when I don't, I always find great parking. Because sometimes God is testing you. It's like, okay, let's throw a wrinkle in there. Let me test your faith. And then boom, I said, nope, I always find great parking. Even if the park at the end of the parking lot one time, that's okay. I always find great parking,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? I'm going to win this battle.
I still get to take a walk. That's what I do when I get when the great parking happens at the other end of the aisle of the parking lot. It's like, yeah, I get
Yeah,
to
no,
take my walk today.
yeah, I know. I get that part, but no, I stay in alignment with my original affirmation. I
Yeah.
always find great parking.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep saying that so that I don't justify me not finding great parking,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I am going to say, boom, nope, God, I know this test. I always find great parking. Boom.
Yeah.
No matter what this circumstance created, maybe my thinking 2 minutes ago wasn't right on point, but I know when my thinking and my frequency and vibration and alignment, I find great parking.
Mm-hmm.
I've also used that in manifesting cars and vehicles. Like I just want a motorcycle for $50. I manifested that, right? So it's manifestation is a God-given gift. And we've been robbed of it because we live in capitalist societies that don't want you to be manifestors. They want you to be workers and consumers. They don't want you to know that you create your own reality, that you can create whatever environment or future or lifestyle that you want. That creation process requires that you imagine the life that you desire. You believe in it wholeheartedly, and you start walking in that reality before it shows up. It's called be, do, have. In your mind, first be that which you desire in your mind and feel it in your body, right? First, I have to get my mind to set up the strategic part. And then I got to get my body in alignment to feel it as if it already happened. It's kind of like the guy they say, if you're the janitor and you want to be the CEO, dress like the CEO and say, I'm the CEO cleaning up right now,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's mindset. Because mindset is what attracts to you what you have in your life. You want to know a person's beliefs? Look at their life.
Yeah. How do you define awakening then?
Awakening, in my opinion, it's so many ways, but awakening to me is truly understanding our divine connection to God and how to connect into it, to understand the game that's being played here on earth and that we chose to be a part of that game. There are no victims here, we're volunteers. And because of this, we volunteered to come into a world that is full of contrasts. And the darkest of the dark can happen here as just as the lightest of the light can happen here. This is a land full of choices, and we have free will to make whatever choices that we want. And once we understand that I own my future by the nature of my choices, and my choices are dictated by how I feel and how I think, then I must realize that the most important thing that I have control over is who I'm choosing to be and how I'm choosing to think in this now moment. So why not wake up every day with a smile and say, thank God for life? Oh, it's raining. What a beautiful thunderstorm. Love it. Oh my God, it's so sunny. I love the warmth. Thank you. It's kind of hot, but it's a blessing. I live in paradise. Like, how do we? It is your responsibility to stay on the positive side of the equation because it's a teeter-totter. And you choose which side of the
Yeah.
teeter-totter wins. You're either going to
Right.
stand on the positive or you're going to stand on the negative. Every time you stand on the negative, you are attracting that to you. And it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what you believe. It doesn't matter if you believe this or not. It's going to happen. We are the creators of our own reality by who we choose to be in every now moment. And if you choose to stand in love, if you choose to stand in peace and joy and happiness, all those are internally generated. Peace, love, joy, and happiness are internally generated. They're not generated by the circumstance. Circumstances don't have the power to dictate how you feel unless you give it the power. I ask my clients, can you find peace, love, joy, and happiness in solitary confinement? And some of them are like, I don't think so. You'd be in prison. It's kind of fucked up. Rats and roaches and da 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 da. And I say, no, you can find peace, love, joy, and happiness. And some of the, in recovery, there's a lot of people that have done long-term prison stints and have spent, months in solitary confinement. And they all say, yeah, you can find peace, love, and joy, and happiness in solitary confinement because you bring it with you.
What
But you
is
also bring your own set of negativity too, because you can be in there miserable, but you brought that shit
right?
in there.
I
It's
want to
all of
bring to
the
yeah,
access.
and it's huge because oh, I can't think of the name of the book. What is the name of the book that Man's Search for Meaning?
Mm.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I've heard of it.
It's Viktor Frankl,
Mhm.
and it was written during well, he wrote it on little tidbits of paper that he hid during while he was in a concentration camp. He was a
Mhm.
psychiatrist
Mhm.
or a psychologist, I can't remember exactly what, but he wrote the entire book in in the concentration camp he was in, and said exactly that. It was like the first part of it described horrific things that all he went through, that he shared, the experiences he shared with the people in the the bunkhouses, all the different things. And then the second part kind of gave an explanation from his knowledge of psychotherapy about what all that was. But the fact that he lived through that for, I don't remember exactly how many years, it was like 3 years, 2, 3, 4 years, something like that. That's the same thing. If you can do something like this in a concentration camp, if you can look through the gates and the wires and through the the prison guards and all these things and see the sunset or the sunrise and still feel connected and still be able to stay within yourself, that's that freedom you were talking about earlier. That's finding that within yourself, because you're right, you can't get this outside of yourself. Nothing you buy, nothing none of the situations like you were talking about, nothing that goes on outside has anything to do with that. The only
Well,
place you can find it is within.
external stimulus does have the ability to give you dopamine hits, right? But those are temporary.
Right. Yeah.
External stimulus is temporary because even if you have somebody you've been married with for 50 years and you experience the love of your life, that relationship is still temporary because sooner or later somebody's going to die. The thing that is eternal is the fountain of love, peace, joy, and happiness that flows from within, right? That is our God-given birthright. It's within us. And we haven't been taught to look within because we've been taught and indoctrinated to believe in a God that exists outside of you. And we've been taught that you need man to introduce you to God. And that to me is one of the biggest misgivings in the history of humanity because many of us don't know that God is within and we don't know to look within, especially in Western religions, right? They have you beholden unto this something outside of yourself that's more like a superhero than an intimate friend that's been knowing you since before this lifetime.
Right. Right. So I have a question that I want to ask you because as long as I've known you, even through everything that you've gone through, and this is something that I've been seeing online a lot more recently. It's the divine feminine and the divine masculine conversations. You, and I have to say this, you are, I'm honored to be in your life as the divine masculine that you are, because the men in my life that I experienced during my growth were not like this. And it was not, you couldn't have a conversation like this, and you couldn't have a relationship like this. Giving and receiving is so important. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on, as part of this time frame, what on the healing of the divine feminine and how it relates to the healing of the divine masculine, because you've done the healing work. You've become, well, you already were that. But for me, not experiencing that growing up and seeing it in somebody like you, but can you give a little bit of some of your
You
thoughts on
know,
that? Or
yeah, I think the conversation about divine masculine and divine feminine has been biased by uh some charlatans and some people that truly don't understand the nature of it, because it's become diabolical and divisive in the ways that I'm being seen it used. And it's always angered to victimhood.
Mhm.
And to me, that story just keeps us divided, and I see these, read online all these people that claim to be tantric leaders and this, that, and the other. And it's constantly language that pits the feminine against the negative, against the masculine, and talks about the divine masculine. I'm more than divine masculine. I'm divine masculine and divine feminine,
Thank you. Okay.
right? You
Mhm.
cannot separate the masculine from the feminine. It's like a magnet. You can't cut the plus out of a magnet. No matter how thin the magnet is, there's going to be masculine and feminine in it. So the
Yeah.
conversation is misguided, and it's used to create divide and conquer. I honestly have not been exposed to what I believe on my own experience of healthy, real healthy conversations with guys. And I know that this comment will be controversial because people really believe in the stuff that they say, but I see it causing more problems than helping, because you can't just look at yourself as the feminine and identify with how the feminine has been dominated by the masculine and blah 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 blah. What really need to talk about is to truly understand what that means, right? The masculine and the feminine. Most men don't know they have a feminine side. And this whole thing about toxic masculinity and da 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 da. No, that's toxic cultural practices that's being practiced by both sides. And we're constantly pitting each other against each other. I believe that it's very important for us, if you're going to talk about masculine and feminine, let's talk about yin yang instead of that, right? Because yin yang, if you look at the symbol of yin yang, it's really not separated. They only did that for the dualistic mind. Yin yang is a ball that's spinning. We stop that ball and cut it in half and say, there's the masculine, there's the feminine. That separation really doesn't exist, right? But when you talk about from a spiritual perspective and you listen to some of the creation stories, they said when God created life, God divided itself into masculine and feminine energies, right? So some spiritual belief systems believe that our what is that called? Our not our soulmate, but our, what's the other one that people talk about? Our flame,
Twin
our
flame.
twin flame.
Twin flame.
The
Yeah.
the 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 definition of twin flame that I've gravitated to is your twin flame is the other half of your soul. And one part of us was the masculine and one part of us was the feminine. But that doesn't really mean anything, because the masculine has incarnated as the feminine many times and the feminine has incarnated as the masculine many times. What it really means is that's the other half of your soul that's living, and it might not be living now. It might be in the spirit realm, or it might be on another planet somewhere. We don't know where most of us don't know where our twin flame is. And twin flame has been used in so many different ways too. And I think it's been bastardized as well. Not that I know everything, but because I don't, but the guidance that I've been given, it to me, that just makes more sense, because this isn't really about divide and conquer. That was more so about manifestation and understanding that in order to create, the masculine and the feminine must come together.
Mhm.
In order to create, the masculine and the feminine must come together. And that's really conceptual too, because in truth, you can't separate it. Each of us has a connection with the masculine, and each of us has an internal connection with the feminine. They exist within us. And that dance oftentimes changes. Some of us are more decidedly masculine, right? It might be a decidedly, not decidedly, but that balance at birth was more masculine, right? Not necessarily by choice, but just by birth. That soul chose to come more masculine as a female. And then there's some men that are more feminine, and that soul chose to incarnate more feminine as a male. Doesn't mean they're gay, and a lot of them aren't. It's just they have more feminine tendencies because that balance between the masculine and the feminine is somewhere else on the scale, right? Like we can generalize and say in general, um, some males may be 70% masculine and 30% feminine. And in general, females may be 70% feminine and 30% masculine. But in truth, we're born somewhere along that scale. And each of us has to figure out what that means to us and how we balance our own internal energies. That dance is about how do you bring your internal masculine together with your internal feminine? And if you divide it up into what are the tasks of the masculine versus what are the tasks of the feminine, it's more so like, am I balanced with my nurturing side? Or am I balanced with my analytical side? Am I balanced with my creative side? Or am I balanced with my constructive and conviction side? It's really about understanding in me, what do I have to do within me to bring that balance based upon my own internal spiritual blueprint.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Oh,
I know.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I mean, the I think that people are talking about it, but you're right. There's like certain specific things that are leading to one thing or leading to something else. And you described it better than I'm doing right now. But what I also notice is that for me, it's like I have had that back and forth thing of trying to figure this out for a while, but I noticed, because of the feminine being squandered or crushed for a long time. But then because I'm a female, looking at that and seeing, how witches were burned at the stake and how all these different things happened with the female and how it was kind of disregarded throughout history and the man took over, all this stuff. And I'm not that person because I also know that men have been struggling as much as women have in all of time. And it isn't necessarily, I mean, we get very general about a lot of things, and it's not that we've all struggled. At the same time, we are still that balance like you were talking about. It's like when we can balance ourselves, when we stop being, as women, we stop being the good little girl or the, what the sweet, you don't say anything, you're not allowed to get angry, that kind of thing. When we stop being that and we uncover our truth, and we become powerful and we're able to bring out that masculine side of us and take action on things and do the things that are meant to happen for the balance. And the same with men. It's like there's so many men I know who have been squashed on, oh, you can't cry because if you cry, then you're a baby girl, or whatever. Crying is actually healing. It doesn't make any sense to me. We're human. So the balance piece of that is to me is important for both sides. The men that have been in my life have not been balanced. And like I said, when I meet people like you, it's like, oh, look at this, so it's, to me, that's important.
The terms masculine and feminine are newfound terms, and they're used for divide and conquer purposes. My
Okay.
dad doesn't know anything about that stuff, right? And
Right.
yet, if you talk to him about what you're talking about, he says, well, yeah, we all need to be compassionate. Oh, yeah, we need to be organized and have strategies. Yeah, we need to be responsible. Yeah, we need to care about other people. Yeah, we need to clean up sometimes. Yeah, I mean, these are characteristics that all humans need to do, and we don't need to categorize them in these
That's
terms,
right. Okay.
masculine and feminine, because it divides and it conquers and it allows somebody to stand in their victimhood more often. I don't
Or
see it
on
as
one side or
right.
the other. It's not like we're all one and that places us away from that oneness.
But that terminology and that
The,
belief system keeps people stuck in their victimhood.
and separate.
Yes, and
Yes.
separate.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
I
And
see
so
that.
it's
Yep.
like when you look at it more so as just human traits that we want to bring into our life because it allows for better living. We can take all that masculine and feminine language and put it to the side because I think the conversation about masculine and feminine needs to be looked at on a much more spiritual level than what I'm seeing in society, where you have a bunch of people running around talking about their goddesses because they're discovering their divine feminine and blah, 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 blah. And then when I look at how they actually live, they're doing pretty much the same things that others are doing. They are attracted to the same kind of men, right?
Mm-hmm.
These goddesses still love the guys they don't not supposed to love because you always are on Facebook seeing that, oh my God, I can't believe this guy got toxic masculinity and blah, 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 blah. Always the victim, but it's like, and I know I'm being a little bit judgmental, but it's what I see. When I'm working with people, oftentimes it's important to kind of like let's normalize this from the standpoint of how can we be a better human?
Bounce. Yeah.
You know, how can we be a
Yeah.
better human
That was the
instead of
second
pitting
word you
them?
said that I was thinking in my head.
Yeah,
So you're reading my mind. Get out of there.
yeah. Um, because most
Humanity.
people aren't qualified to really talk about divine feminine and divine masculine. What does divine mean? Right? What does divine mean to the average person? There's so many different definitions. What does
Right.
feminine mean? There's so many definitions. You got the tantric definition versus the goddess tantric. But I mean, all these different definitions. And to me, the conversations gets polluted by people's personal idiosyncrasies,
Mm.
and they add it on to what they perceive as true. And I just think it's very important for us to kind of let's get to the basics and be better humans. Look in the mirror and say, what can I do to love myself more? How can I be a better person? What trauma, drama, and pain do I need to heal within me now? Right? What goals and dreams have I not pursued? How can I be healthier mentally? How can I be healthier spiritually? How can I be healthier physically? Right? America is the most morbidly overweight country in the world. The comorbidity of being overweight is proven. So we're some of the sickest people in the world. We pay the most for our drugs than any other place in the world, and we have the worst health outcomes of anyone else in the world. It's because we're focusing on things that really don't help us live better. And what I mean by better is being healthier mentally, healthier physically, healthier spiritually, in alignment with the will of God as you know it from the inside out. That's how I define it. I know my perspective is controversial, but I stand on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it makes sense. It makes sense to me. So I appreciate the fact that you were being controversial. I don't see how it's controversial. I see us as humans also. I
Yes,
see us as all being one
yes.
because we all bleed red, you know? I mean, come on. So
Mhm.
well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you
Yes,
stepping in and saying that because that's the thing. It's like I'm here to learn. I'm not here to tell people what to do. I'm not here to tell people, you know, I share my story, I share your story. I want people to see what other people go through. And I
mhm.
also want them to know that they have the option of doing this themselves because you can go from this to this, you
Right,
know, and that's all that this is about. And then once you connect with that human inside of you and uncover that human's truth, then you can come out and be who you were meant to be on this planet, which is what you're
right.
doing, right?
And you'll naturally gravitate to your innate balance between the masculine and feminine.
Yeah, that's
Oftentimes,
true.
when we identify with these teachings,
Mm-hmm.
we force ourselves into a copycat mold so that, and we're trying to balance ourselves out because a lot of people that go through this have been hurt, right? But a lot of our hurt and stuff is based on a lot of our cultural um misteachings and a lot of our family structure being broken down. A lot of the principles, we don't vet people before we date them, right? People are dating for the wrong reason. Oh, you have nice titties, I want to date you. Or, oh, he has a fat wallet, I want to date you. Or like, are you
You
really looking
said that.
at,
You really said that. Thanks a lot.
yeah, are we really looking at how we date? Are we really looking at what we value in the opposite sex? Are we really looking at what relationships are supposed to be about?
But
No, we're not.
here's something really cool about that though. When you do your work and you go inside of you and you learn about who you are, you're not even attracting people like that into your life anymore. You're not looking for it and you're not bringing it in. You start attracting people who are at the same vibration or maybe a little higher, whatever. Generally, it's at the same vibration, and it's a totally different ball game
Hmm.
than a normal dating scene or a normal, oh my God, I got to find the man of my dreams. I have,
Right.
that's not what happens anymore.
Yeah, it's trauma bonding. A lot of our relationships are trauma bonding
Right.
because we're just looking for a warm body so that and sex becomes your drug or connection becomes your drug. And and we don't do the research of like, is this a person that's safe for me to connect with? Like, does this person stand on their word? Is this person anchored in love?
Yeah.
Like, there's
Yeah.
some things that we need to teach ourselves and our children about how to date, right? It's not just about, oh, I got the
Bingo.
urge, let me find a warm body. Um,
Bingo.
then that's kind of what happens. It's we're in a place now where a lot of the societal norms, like Malcolm X said, the chickens are coming home to roost because of the things that we allow to infiltrate our media, our educational systems, our politics, and our finances. We've created the condition of our world right now. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're at a place where these things have to change. The world won't change until we change internally. So each of us is being required to look in the mirror and say, how can I be a better person that's anchored in love? Better doesn't mean financially, I make a ton of money. First, let me anchor myself in love so I can find joy in the simple things by watching a butterfly, by looking at a baby smile, by watching the sunrise, by smelling the scent of the ocean, right? Like those things can bring great joy to a person that's connected versus someone that's constantly on the grind, constantly trying to figure out why they're not happy. And part of it is because we haven't learned how to deal with our own mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
And all of us are dealing with mental health issues that most of us inherited from childhood. And we got to make that right first because that thinking is interfering with what we are creating as our experience of our world. I'll give an example. For instance, my mother was emotionally unavailable and she loved me the best that she knew how, right? So that was the type of love that I knew. So when I started dating women that were emotionally unavailable all the time. And I'm like, whoa, how come like they had why am I dating these type of women? And I realized the first woman that I learned to love was my mother. And that was the energy that she gave off. And I didn't know that at the time. I was emotionally unavailable. As a child, we don't have those words in our vocabulary.
Right.
You just know what you're being given and you think that's what it is. And because that's all you've been exposed to. And I give the example, um, I didn't realize that until my sophomore year in college. I went away. Uh, I didn't go home for Thanksgiving. My girlfriend invited me of that time. She invited me to go to her grandmother's house. And so we go to the grandma's house, and grandma opens the door and sees her grandbaby, and she goes, "There's my baby," and gives her this big bosomed hug, and like, "Oh, my baby." And my girlfriend, she just rested her head on her grandma's bosom, and you could tell they've been hugging like this a whole lifetime, right? Then she looks at me and says, "Who is this handsome young man?" And gives me the same hug. My mother didn't even hug me like
Mm-hmm.
that. I started
And
crying.
wow.
And I ran into the bathroom. I was like, "Keith, what is wrong with you?" And I was like, holy crap, my mother doesn't even hug me like that. And it wasn't because my mother didn't love me. I knew she did. But the way she expressed love, she didn't do it as freely as this woman was able to love a stranger unconditionally in the same way that she hugged her grandbaby. That was to me my first exposure to unconditional love from a stranger in that way. And that was powerful for me
Yeah.
because it helped me to learn more about myself, to learn more about and to be more compassionate towards my mom and to have some questions, like where's my mother really hurting? She's passed now, and passed before I had this understanding because I definitely would have asked her, well, like, "Mom, what's going on? Like, what happened? And are you willing to heal that?" Like, I would have come to with that conversation, but um, it was for me to learn
Mm.
so that I can understand how it's so easy for us to be shaped and molded through our parents' hurt and pain. And then that becomes the defining marks of who we think we are. And until we break that cycle, we'll continue to produce the same results and we'll hand that down to our children and so on and so forth. Our goal is to wake up now to be conscious of who I am choosing to be. What are the choices that are not leading to constructive growth? And what are the choices that are leading to constructive growth? How do I
Yes.
heal myself so that I can make more constructive growth? Because the word sober means clear-minded.
Mm, interesting. Did I know that? I did not know that. I have to write that down.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Wow. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. All right. You do this. You do this all the time. Whenever I sit with you, it's like this. Whoa! You blow my mind. You clear
Yeah.
my mind. You sober my mind.
And I really don't take all the credit. The credit that I take is I've done a lot of work
Yeah,
so that spirit can work through me, so that
it does.
I've done a lot of work so that I can look at my own internal hurt and pains, so I can go through that experience myself, so I can speak to it with
Yeah.
validity. And so I'm really a servant right now. And
Mm,
I really listen inwardly to hear what the right message is for me to share in the moment. I do this every day in front of groups of people that are struggling with addiction to help them discover their best self and no more excuses,
mm-mm.
right? No more
Don't
excuses,
need them anymore. Mm-mm.
no more victimhood.
No,
Um, Life will change only if you change from the inside out. If you do
that's
not
right.
change from the inside out, you will continue to run in the same hamster wheel. And
Truth.
that quickly can turn into suffering.
That's right. Well, so since you're really good at helping people out, and I know this personally, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, I have a website, coachkeithbrooks.com. You
Okay.
can definitely go on there. You can share my email if you want. My email is so cluttered, but coachkeithbrooks.com is the best way because there's a Calendly link up thing, and you can schedule like a little appointment with me or something like that if you want to just do a half an hour talk. We can do that. I got to go in there and correct that. You can reach out to Caroline because she knows how to get in touch with me. So any anyway, if you're interested in being in touch with me, I'm a spiritual life coach. My focus is on helping you to tap into God within by your definition, and to become aware of all those things, for you to personally become aware of all those things that are in the way of your light, the light of God, all those things that are in the way of your personal peace, all those things that are in the way of your experience of unconditional love,
Mm.
all those things that prevent you from experiencing joy in every now moment. My goal is to help expose those so that you can address them, because that's what we came here to do, is to peel away all the darkness that is blunting out the light of God from within.
Yes, and all of that, well, not all of it, but in the description, there will be the links for sure to everything he just said.
Thank
That's
you.
a yes. Is there anything else you'd like to share before you wrap up?
I just, honestly, I think if people can take this moment and look at this time and realize we are in one of the greatest times in the history of humanity, and it's a blessing to be alive now, even though there's so many narratives being dumped down our throat. I invite you to not pay attention to the narratives and start to feel the reality in your heart. Everything that was hidden under the rock is coming into the light on purpose. And that's so that those things can be exposed and removed. The same things that I'm encouraging people to do within their own soul is happening to the soul of our world.
Mm.
The human soul is being challenged to remove all those things that cast darkness onto the light, which God represents. So everything is being exposed. And the other thing is, understand our children are the ones that came here to anchor in love, so that the next generation is built upon the foundation of love. Our generation, our responsibility is to deconstruct that which was built and not anchored in love. And we're doing that now, and you're experiencing it. We are human beings in the chrysalis.
Mm.
We're evolving from the caterpillar of living in the darkness to the butterfly of flying into the light. And this is what it feels like being in the chrysalis. This is what complete transformation feels like. It is uncomfortable, but
Mhm.
necessary. And I invite you to don't focus on the problems of now. Focus on the potential that your children are going to be bringing into this world, because they're not accepting the bullshit that we believe is true, the division that we believe is true. They come with access to love in greater ways than we do. And they are going to be the ones that anchor in love and new ways of doing things. And this world, God wins. God wins this time. It's not going back to the way it was. God wins. Have faith. God wins this time. The light wins. Love wins. Darkness is no longer winning. We're out of that time. This is the time of revelation. So give thanks and start affirming the positive. Affirm a life where humans get along and we love each other freely and openly. We're not running to live in gated communities and all of this. Affirm a world where healthcare is given and the solutions aren't hidden from everyone. They have the solution to all these diseases, but it's not profitable to heal diseases, right? It's profitable to maintain a disease. So there's so much information and things that is available. And once we get the status quo out of the way, we're going to see a different world and a different life. And I pray that people open their hearts to the possibilities of a positive future and not get stuck in the negative narratives that are prevalent throughout all of social media and mainstream media.
Right. Thank you. That was beautiful. And also just something that hit me when you said that, as parents with young children, the new generation of these children, when you do your work and you heal yourself, you create that space that you get to hold for these children instead of feeding them the same ancestral garbage that we have been taught throughout the generations.
Yep.
You heal, you hold, and you provide what these children already know how to do. That's all you need to
Right.
do.
You're breaking the cycle so that
Yeah.
they can be free and grow in the pot that you provide, in the cup, in the safe zone that you provide. But the Native Americans believe that when you heal yourself, the work is healing 7 generations
Yes.
in your past and 7 generations in your future. You're
Mhm.
healing your family line. And
Yep.
it's a noble experience. And that's our souls volunteered for this. See, it's not that this is something extra we're supposed to do. We're supposed to wake up to what our mission is. When I work in recovery, I tell them I'm not here to talk to the drug addict. I'm here to wake up the sleeping giant, right?
Mm,
The sleeping
thank you.
master. I'm here
Yeah,
to wake up the sleeping master because the sleeping master is within you and it's waiting for you to move the addict out of the way.
that's right. All right, Keith, got to get going here. We could talk for years.
Absolutely.
So thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. I'm so grateful that you decided to be here with me. And to all of you in the audience, thank you for joining us on Awakening Soul Divinity. And we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Peace.